General Bipin Rawat was on the Agenda Aaj Tak platform last year, 2020, where he spoke on many different things, including the 5 qualities that every soldier must have. And we're going to continue to bring you many of the things that General Bipin Rawat had said in the last few years of his life. And we will continue to bring you those. Here's what he said on Agenda Aaj Tak last year.
कोई भी नौजवान जब अपनी प्रशिक्षण के लिए अपने ट्रेनिंग सेंटर में जाता है, रिक्रूट बनकर बाद में भारतीय सेना में तैनात होने के लिए, किस तरह के विचार उसके इंस्ट्रक्टर, उसके प्रशिक्षक उसको ध्यान देने में बार बार उसके दिमाग में ये गढ़ते रहते हैं कि ये विचारधारा सदा आप अपने साथ लेकर चलेंगे। और इस विचारधारा को मैं सिर्फ 5 शब्दों में दोहराना चाहूँगा, और वो है, हर एक जवान को ये सिखलाई दी जाती है कि आप जिस भी कार्य को करने जा रहे हैं, आपने इन 5 शब्दों को ध्यान में रखना है, और वो है नाम, नमक, निशान, वफादारी और इज़्ज़त। तो इन 5 शब्दों पर, इन 5 तत्वों पर एक सैनिक की नींव जड़ी जाती है। ये 5 शब्द इतनी गहराई से उसके दिमाग में बैठा दिए जाते हैं कि जब भी उसे किसी कर्तव्य का पालन करता होता है, इन तत्वों को ध्यान में रखते हुए उसे आगे चलते रहना होता है। और जब तक भारतवर्ष के सैनिक इन 5 शब्दों का अमल करते रहेंगे, तब तक मैं यकीन के साथ कह सकता हूं कि भारतीय सेना को के ऊपर अगर कोई बुरी नज़र डालेगा तो उसका नष्ट कर दिया जाएगा।
Images on your screen now of when General Bipin Rawat was appointed the Chief of Defence Staff, India's first Chief of Defence Staff in 2019. He had so many things on his plate. I mean, there were so many different projects that General Bipin Rawat was actually working on, from the integration of the military to theaterization, to many different aspects of, making the different arms of the armed forces work together in a more cohesive and optimal manner. Angad, you've done a lot of research on the aviation aspects, as also, the joint philosophies of the armed forces. Just give us a sense of many of the very important things that General Bipin Rawat was working on as Chief of Defence Staff.
I mean, yeah, Shiv, the CDS was mandated to optimize, streamline, and of course engender, I would say, increased jointness amongst 3 services. That mandate, of course, hasn't changed no matter who holds that post. But as the first CDS, he arguably had the toughest job. He had to essentially stand up this all new vertical, the Department of Military Affairs, and get it off the ground. So forget achieving any of his mandatory aims of jointness and so on. Just the task of setting up this new paradigm. And it was an incredible responsibility on his shoulders as the first Chief of Defence Staff, and I think this loss will be felt more keenly for that reason.
How you're right when you say that these are things that whoever occupies this office is going to have to take forward. Given the very onerous nature of many of these things. These are grassroots reforms that, some of these efforts were really pointed towards. How much of a jolt is this going to be towards many of those efforts, Angad, in your view?
That's a great question, Shiv. I think we can all acknowledge that a lot of administration in our country, whether civilian or military, is driven fundamentally by personalities. We do have institutional structures and systems in place, But fundamentally, many of these things come down to people at the top who have the will and vision to drive them forward. And in that sense, I think I do think we simply as a consequence of his demise and whoever comes in as the new chief of defense staff, I think we will see a change of, let's say, pace or direction at the very least in terms of what the DMA under the CDS was trying to accomplish, which is not to say that the fundamental mandate has changed or will change just because we've lost the sitting CDS. The mandate is still jointness. The mandate is still a process and outcome optimization. So to that extent, I think that will carry on, just slightly changed in character.
Angad, thank you very much for giving us your time, joining us on that important aspect, because a lot of people don't know very much about what the Chief of Defence Staff's role was really about. So these are going to be very big shoes to fill. These are the first shoes to fill in many, basically, because he was India's first Chief of Defence Staff. The paperwork and the procedures of appointing his successor is something that will take place in the days and the weeks ahead, but it'll happen sooner rather than later, because this was an important office that he held and one that cannot be there has to be continuity as far as that is concerned. Gaurav Sawant also joins me. Angad, thank you very much. Poulomi will be reporting on the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting that's just begun at the Prime Minister's residence. Gaurav, an unspeakable tragedy. It's still it's still sinking in for you and me, Gaurav. I can only imagine how the system is still processing the enormity of this tragedy.
Shiv, it's yet to sink in. I mean, someone who was so vibrant, someone who was always there, who wanted to achieve something. Remember, Shiv, when there was so much pressure on integration, on theaterization, there were so many who said, maybe it's not possible. There are so many reservations. Whether you can actually do it, should you hold it back? He said, no, we will go ahead and we will do it, because theaterization is what is required. And every time you and I interviewed him, Shiv, he insisted theaterization is the need of the hour and worked round the clock. In fact, his last interview to us here at India Today was on theaterization, was to insist that they will go ahead with or without objections. And here he wasn't steamrolling anyone. He said, we will take everyone on board. And look at his past, look at his career. He won a Sword of Honor, which means he was a brilliant cadet as a youngster. He's performed extremely well. He's won a wound medal in battle, so which means he's been wounded in counter-terror operations. He's been wounded in combat. He spearheaded, in a way, the surgical strike that had taken place in the Northeast, and that was extremely significant. Here was someone who had that can-do spirit. The army can do it, we will do it, and we will come back safe. That was his message. Same message in Docklam, that we will not back down. So here was someone, even post Article 317 Jammu and Kashmir, the army reassured the government, the entire hierarchy reassured the government that we will be on top of the situation, and we were as a nation, Shiv. So here was someone who had a lot to achieve. Last conversation that we had with him, Shiv, his entire focus was there is a lot to be done. We've lost time during COVID, but let's now catch up.
We have to catch up, and the spirit of what General Bipin Rawat stood for has to be taken forward. There isn't any time to waste. Today and tomorrow there will be his state send-off will be taking place tomorrow. His mortal remains, Gaurav, are on their way to Delhi along with Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, the wife of General Bipin Rawat. They had two young daughters. One of their daughters is married, lives in Mumbai. The other daughter lived with them here in the national capital. Our deepest condolences, our deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers with the families of General Bipin Rawat, as well as the 11 other personnel who have lost their lives on this helicopter. All of their names, we are equally putting them out here on India Today. So you will see all of their names here on India Today. There has been one survivor, as Gaurav was telling us. Group Captain Varun Singh is an experienced Air Force pilot, a Shaurya Chakra awardee from this year itself, who was also ironically in that crash. He has survived but has critical injuries, and many prayers are going up that he also survives. He survives this terrifying, terrifying accident that has taken away the lives of so many, including India's top military officer, General Bipin Rawat. That's Group Captain Varun Singh you see on your screen right now. He's the senior Air Force pilot who was on board that helicopter, who has miraculously survived but with grievous injuries. He's fighting for his life right now at the base hospital in Wellington, not far from where this helicopter had actually crashed. This brave pilot had been decorated with a Shaurya Chakra earlier this year, in January this year, as a matter of fact, for his handling of a mid-air emergency in an LCA Tejas fighter jet. And today, he has been critically, life-threateningly injured in a helicopter crash that has taken away the lives of 13 others. Chief of Defence Staff Bipin Rawat was in Delhi last evening. He took part in a curtain raiser. He was a very, very busy man, always dashing between different parts of the country to address audiences, to inaugurate events, to be parts of panel discussions. Today, as a matter of fact, he was to deliver a lecture at the Defence Services Staff College in Wellington, a prestigious institution of the military, where he was supposed to deliver a lecture to young officers. Last evening, before taking off this morning, last evening, he took part in the Panix 21 event at Delhi's DRDO Bhavan. He was accompanied by the Chief of Army Staff. This was a multi-nation disaster management exercise that he was talking about. He spoke at length on his favorite topic, synergy in the armed forces. Here's General Bipin Rawat's final public words.
It is important for us in uniform, men and women in uniform, to see how best we can support our nations. During COVID-19, every country in the world is dependent on the armed forces to provide some kind of support, not just to their own people, not just to their own veterans, but to reach out to the civilian population and see how best they could come in their support. And these kind of disasters are something which will continue to happen in the future. They have happened in the past, we will be facing such pandemics in the future. It is very important for all of us together to put our heads together, put our minds together, and put our effort together to make sure that we are able to respond in a rather rapid manner. In fact, it has been the endeavour of our government as part of our Act-Peace policy to ensure that nations which are on the eastern periphery of our country get maximum support. And therefore, I think this BIMSTEC forum provides us the right opportunity to stand together in unity and make sure that we are able to come to each other's support.
Gaurav, the irony is so crushing. That was General Bipin Rawat speaking on a topic that you and I have spoken to him so many times over the years about. It was his favorite topic and it had become the core of his work as Chief of Defence Staff, synergy between the armed forces. But as you were pointing out, Gaurav, so incredibly ironic, delivering a lecture last night and gone today.
You know, this is life, and this just shows we need to cherish every moment that we are on this earth, Shiv. Here was a man who was so full of life. He was a man on a mission, and it indicated, every aspect of his life indicated that he was a man on a mission. He wanted reforms. He wanted to get rid of a lot of British era legacies. He wanted to bring in the army, which was more Indianized. That was his effort, and synergy was a major part of it. And he said, we will achieve it. He reassured Prime Minister Narendra Modi that theatrization will happen. He was very keen that this Independence Day, Prime Minister announces the theatrization of air defense, and he was confident we would achieve it. There were some niggles, so he thought an effort would be made, and let's sort out those niggles, and perhaps that announcement can be made on Republic Day 2022. So with missionary zeal, they were moving forward. Same is the case with Brigadier L.S. Liddar. Shiv had interviewed Brigadier Liddar, then Colonel Liddar, who was a defense attaché at Astana. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet, Colonel Liddar was really running around ensuring everything happened with clockwork precision, and I had an opportunity to interact with him then and then again interact with him when he was defense attaché, defense assistant to the Chief of Defense Staff. Again, the brightest minds in the Indian Armed Forces, Shiv, we've lost some of them.
It's just, it's incredible. I mean, it's, I cannot imagine what the families of General Bipin Rawat and the families of the other 11 persons who have perished in this crash are going through at this point of time. Our deepest condolences from us here on India Today to all of the families, to the Air Force, to the units, to the to the maintenance staff, all of whom have lost something today. And it is a country that has lost its top most military officer and 11 brave souls who've perished in this crash, along with the Chief of Defence Staff and his wife Madhulika Rawat, who we salute today. This was an accident, the truth of which will only be known after a crash inquiry, so I don't want to even for a moment conjecture on what may have caused the crash, but following the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting that takes place, that's taking place as we speak by the Prime Minister. Tomorrow there will be details, Gaurav, and I want to draw you in on that. In fact, do we have any details yet on what kind of state preparations, the state send-off that General Bipin Rawat will receive? He was, after all, India's first Chief of Defence Staff.
So preparations are still on, Shiv. It's still sinking in, even as far as the establishment was concerned, because just till a couple of hours ago, they were extremely keen and hopeful that there would be some survivors. Remember, Shiv, they were saying that there are 3 survivors, 80% burn injuries, but they would survive. But that hope actually sank a couple of hours later when we were told that Group Captain Varun Singh Shaurya Chakra is the only, and he was directing staff at the Defence Services Staff College, the sole survivor in this incident. So now Chief of Air Staff is currently on his way to Salur. He'll bring back the mortal remains, we are told, on board a special aircraft. We are also told that should the need be, Group Captain Varun Singh will also be brought to Delhi's Research and Referral Hospital. And even as we speak, efforts are on for the next step, including who would the next CDS be, Shiv?
Absolutely. All those tasks will have to be gone through, and I knew General Bipin Rawat, as did Gaurav. We knew him very well, and we pray for the departed soul, and we also thank him for his service as well as his friendship, and being the man that General Bipin Rawat was, I can guarantee you he would have said, appoint the next guy and just get on with it now. He wouldn't have wanted any fuss over his departure from this world. That's the kind of man he was, a professional soldier and a truly a soldier's general. So this is a farewell to General Bipin Rawat. Our coverage will continue. We're taking a very brief break, but back with more updates on this developing story. Stay with us.